Hey everybody, welcome to this little guide on win conditions. I've been wanting to do this for a while, but I wasn't sure how to do it without it being like too massive and having to put too much time in it. I think I came up with something. Um, basically, one reason I want to do this because I think a lot of newer players maybe don't understand the concept of win condition. At least maybe haven't been like shown it in a formal way. So I just really want to do a quick what is a win condition, and then I'm going to give two examples of some recent battles I had that I think have that clearly show what I'm talking about. So I hope this is helpful for you guys. If it is, please like it, comment on it. Other things you might want to see. I'm thinking about doing a video about board position. Not sure yet, but yeah, guys, I hope this is helpful. So let's get going. So this first thing, of course, is what is a win condition, or also known as a win con. And you've probably heard that word before, like maybe watching other people saying, "What's my win condition?" or "Where's my win con here?" or kind of talks like that. But basically, the way I'm defining it here is it's a certain set or a particular set of conditions or situations needed in order to obtain victory in a given Pokemon battle. And of course, it's in the word, the win condition. There's when you're in a battle, you're looking for those particular conditions in that particular battle that will most likely lead you to victory. And a few points to make about that is I think every game has different win cons. Now, every game the goal is to knock out all of your opponent's Pokemon. I think like 90 to 99% of games will do that. Occasionally they'll go to timer. So obviously that's the ultimate win condition, but when we talk about win cons, it's how you achieve that goal. So maybe that's more the goal that the win con is trying to achieve. And then there's certain ways to achieve that, and I think every game will be different, and we'll get a little bit more into why that is in a second. Another thing is win cons are dynamic, and they may change with every turn as new information is gained. Also with this is like as you lose Pokemon or your opponent loses Pokemon, certain status effects happen. Just all kinds of things will change the win con. So you might have a particular plan going into the game, but as the game progresses, that plan has to adapt because the win con is going to change. And that's why I kind of harp on sometimes that dynamic play is really important. Learning how to play dynamically and not just like stick to one strategy or one idea. You've got to adapt throughout the battle, especially as you're juggling information. You got to put it all together real fast and figure out, okay, where's the win con now? And then one thing that's really, really important to emphasize, some elements of a win con are out of your control. There's some things where you're just like, I need this to happen, or I need my opponent to do this. I can't control that, but if they do it, that's my win con. Or there's like some RNG factors, like I need them to miss, I need a full para, I need to hit this move, or there's a lot of elements that are out of your control, and that's okay. And this is where this idea, the risk management part of the game comes in. You've got to learn what gives you the best chances, or what's your gut telling you. So there's a couple ways to go at it. So just always remember win cons. Some of them are just out of your control, and you gotta live with it. That's the game we play. That's all there's to say about that. So let's go ahead. Let's look at what a win condition is made up of. So I've got three things here that I thought of off the top of my head: board position, Pokemon matchups, and then of course your opponent. So when talking about board position, think like chess. If anyone's ever played chess, you're moving pieces and you're always looking at the whole board as like what each piece's relation to the other pieces is, especially your opponent's, and like how you have one piece that's guarded by another piece. So if they were to take that piece, so like for instance, your bishop is in range of their queen, but your bishop is protected by like a pawn. So if the queen were to take that bishop, your pawn would take their queen. Now that's not a trade worth making. Like you wouldn't take a bishop, at the expense of your queen. And so it's sort of, there's a relationship going on with those pieces. The same as with Pokemon. Like what relationship does each Pokemon have with each other and how do I manipulate those relationships and utilize their, like, how I use those Pokemon to achieve that win condition. And so that's probably kind of what I mean by board position, because like Pokemon does have that element, but a little bit smaller scale and way more sort of things going on, way more information being juggled than just simply like a set way moves pieces can move and a set board of set pieces. So the two things I really want to talk on when talking about board position: first, when you're deciding on a turn, it's not only important to think about what your opponent's going to do on the turn about to come up, but you want to make your choices and how it's going to affect the following turn or the turn after that. Like, you always got to be thinking ahead. Same thing in chess. You've got to be thinking, like, if I do this, what's my opponent's most likely going to do? Or if he does this, how do I react? Same thing in Pokemon. Like, if you're only looking at the turn in front of you, it's going to be hard to be consistent, because you have to look towards that end game, that last turn, or at least the turn after the one in front of you, because that's how you're going to learn to set up those win conditions, or the one win condition you might have. So you've got to think ahead as best you can. This leads into this next point within board position: free switches. It's easy to see a Pokemon in front of you and you just want to knock it out, because like that Pokemon's lower in health. I can knock it out right now. Let's do it. The point of the game is to knock out all 4 Pokemon. But again, how you go about that is what's really important. So if you're just thinking ahead, like, I can knock out this Pokemon, but then the next turn, what happens? They get a free switch into something, and into something that might just be their win condition that'll just wreck you or run through your team. So you've got to think ahead like that. And one of the examples is going to show this really well. And we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, if you're thinking ahead, like, whenever you're about to knock out a Pokemon, think, if I knock this Pokemon out, what does it mean? What comes in? Especially if I know what's in the back, what comes in? Is it something I can't switch into, or like, or is it something that you don't want next to the Pokemon that's still on the field? You always got to be thinking like that. There's a consequence for every action, and sometimes those consequences are good and sometimes they're bad. Like, what's the consequence of knocking out this Pokemon? And same with this, goes back to board positioning. If I say I'm gonna knock out this Pokemon, but what's gonna come in is gonna be a problem unless I have this Pokemon on the field. So maybe like with my other Pokemon, I switch into that to cover when that comes in. Like, okay, I'm gonna knock out this Pokemon, but I need fake out the next turn for when this new Pokemon's gonna come in. So I'll switch into my fake out, knock out the Pokemon, and now you can handle what just got the free switch a little better with the fake out. And again, I'm gonna show you in the example that exact scenario. So be thinking ahead. Always be thinking ahead. Board position. Next, your Pokemon matchups. This is probably the most simple one people understand, especially type matchups. I've played this game since I was a kid, and I've always understood, and you want to get those type matchups. So that's really important. And so as you're playing through, you got to think, and where this is important, win conditions, think about as the game progresses and Pokemon are getting knocked out, think about, okay, what I have left and what they have left, or what do they have left? Do I need to conserve this Pokemon because it has the matchup I need to defeat what they're going to have late in the game? You can see on the picture here, you have Ferrothorn and Incineroar. Like, Ferrothorn trumps, Incineroar trumps Ferrothorn. Like, Ferrothorn's not going to win a late game battle with Incineroar. So if you think, they have Ferrothorn in the back and your Incineroar's out and being threatened by a Pokemon, like, you got to conserve that Incineroar somehow while getting rid of the threat to Incineroar, so you can win that late game against Ferrothorn. Because if you lose Incineroar and your last 2 Pokemon are like, I don't know, Togekiss and Magnezone, like, you're not going to win that against Ferrothorn. It's going to Leech Seed you and just whittle you down while you can't do anything to it. So yeah, you got to think about that kind of stuff. So yeah, really think about that. Speed tiers. How do Pokemon match up in speed? Like, if my Pokemon like this Pokemon maybe might be good in the late game, but it might be too slow to get the job done. Like, be thinking about what's faster, because I can tell you back in 2017, 2018, one thing that made Tapu Koko really good and a really good closer was its speed. You could whittle down the Pokemon, and your win con was to bring in your Koko and then just clean up that way. So because it was so fast, and like a lot of the speed control stuff was over with, and their speed control mons were gone, and then Coco just comes in and cleans up. So you gotta think like that. Or like speed ties. I've had this where we both have Cocos left in the end game, and it's just like, well, it's like I can't really, my win condition is going to come down to winning a speed tie, so I'm just going to do that. So you gotta really think about that stuff. And then remaining HP or previous damage dealt. As Pokemon switch in and out, they'll be taking damage as well. Getting like recognizing like if I get this chip on this Pokemon, I can deal with it then later. Or like how if my Pokemon has too much damage on it, it can't win in the end game. You got to be thinking about that. Like we like the damage calc for like surviving hits, which is good, but then once you're in the game, those calcs kind of get thrown out the window when you start losing HP, and you've got to really think about like, do I have the health I need to win this game with this Pokemon and whatnot. So yeah, so those are some examples to put in. There's other ideas, but those are the biggest ones I see. And then finally, your opponent. Part of the biggest element of win condition is your opponent. And this is part of what's out of your control. Like, for instance, like them you're hoping that they make a certain decision that, like, okay, I can win if I do this and they do this. If I make X and they do Y, then I can. That's part of the win condition. Or so. And that kind of plays into tendency and habits. You want to, this is where like playing people multiple times really matters, or like knowing someone's playstyle. You can kind of know their tendencies and habits, and when you know that, you can kind of make your decisions based on that. Like, does this person like to make hard reads? Are they really aggressive, or are they going to capitalize off a situation it's really favorable to them? Or are they going to play conservatively and not take any chances? Just think. It's obviously on the latter, it's hard to tell. But you got to make those calls sometimes, and if you're paying attention to how they're playing throughout the game, you can kind of start to get a read later in the game. Like if they've made a couple like really crazy reads early, you can probably assume they're going to do the same later and capitalize off that. So, but that's where the win con is banking on your opponent to make that decision. Stats, items, moves, of course. Pokemon's an information game. The more information you have, the easier it is to make decisions. So once you find out certain movesets, that'll adjust how you're going to go about your win conditions. And if you aren't sure about something but it might happen, you have to like assess the risk, like, do I make this take this chance or not? So, and then my favorite win con element of a win con is hoping for a mistake. Sometimes you just gotta make a play hoping your opponent makes a mistake and you capitalize off it, and that's a win con sometimes. So you just gotta hope they do something that they probably shouldn't do, or I don't know, anything like that. So yeah, okay, let's get into a couple examples now. I have two from a stream I did not too long ago. Okay, so here's the first example. What's going on here is that I was down 2-4 against a Porygon Z Clefairy lead, and Porygon Z was just like wrecking my team. So I got rid of the Clefairy. I got this Porygon down to range of an attack. Politoed lives the Hyper Beam because Porygon was at -1 special attack, and then it also managed to survive this, which was really clutch. So I will survive the turn, get rid of this Porygon right now, do some damage to the Conkeldurr. The damage really wasn't significant. I was just going for damage. My hope there was like he was Iron Fist and not Guts, and I could get a burn to help with survivability. But you'll see he used Guts because he burns himself for the Flame Orb. Yay. So it's still looking better now that I got down to a 2-2. It kind of depended on what was the last Pokemon, which is going to end up being Chandelure, which made it look pretty grim because, Scavalier, not a big fan of fire types. The upside is Scavalier has Rain and the Occa Berry, so that gives me hope. And I believe there's still like 4 turns of Rain, maybe 3, because I think that was either the first or second turn of Rain. But I have enough Rain turns to capitalize. So, let's see here. Yeah, so I was thinking about what do I want to do. And I was thinking about protecting Politoed because it was so low, but that was going to be obvious. And then I decided, okay, it's 2-2, I'm slower than everything. I decided my win con was going to be go for Perish Song. So I needed Politoed to not get attacked this turn by Conkeldurr, because I figured it should live a Heat Wave. And I'm going to go for Perish Song. So I'm going to protect Escavalier to prevent any damage. I knew I could take a Heat Wave with the Rain and Akaberry, but I wasn't so sure about the double up. So I went ahead and protected it to conserve its, to make it have a little more health for stalling out Perish Song. And go for the Perish Song and hope that Politoed doesn't get attacked here by Conkeldurr. So there's the Heat Wave. I do live it as expected in the rain, very bulky. He goes for this Escavalier, so there's step 1, get the Perish Song off, and I do. Okay, so Perish Song is off. I gotta stall out these turns to win. There's also another win, and one way to do that is to get rid of this Chandelure. So I had to think about, okay, now is he gonna attack Politoed, or do I protect it now, or do I think he doubles Escavalier again? And I was thinking about it, and I decided to just go after the Chandelure, because if I did get the Chandelure, if I got rid of the Chandelure, I would win the game, because I could protect one turn, and then Conkeldurr could only knock out one of my Pokemon potentially. So I go for the double attack into this. And I expected Sash, but I wanted, just in case, like he'd attacked Politoed, I went for Drill Run, thinking that might knock it out if it's not Sash, and if he does knock out Politoed, I can get rid of that. And then at that point, it comes down to a double protect, most likely. And yeah, so we'll see here. He ends up not attacking the Politoed. So all I have to do, so I'm gonna get the Scald off. Again, I have to make sure, I need a Escavalier to live. The Heat Wave does less than I was expecting, which is nice. Maybe a little less than expecting. So I'm easily live this Drain Punch at +2 defense. So that made the defense boost made a huge difference there. And okay, we're in good shape. Now I get the double attack off. I Scald. However, there's a situation where I don't get this attack off, and that's that Drill Run has a 5% chance to miss, and guess what? It missed, and I am not happy, because that if I had taken that out, I win the game. So now my win condition has changed from get rid of this Chandelure that turn to double protect this turn, and then get one double protect next turn on one of my Pokemon. So it's now I'm not, and I'm thinking too, like I should have just Iron Hitted, because I was expecting Sash, and I was like, if I Scald it, I'm gonna Scald it first because Politoed's faster, and then Iron Head will knock it out because it's 1 HP and it doesn't miss. But at the time too, I was thinking that okay, I was trying to cover that if they do attack Politoed and knock it out, and Escavalier survives the turn, I get the Drill Run off, and I knock out Chandelure if it's not Sash. And at least I wasn't sure. I figured I would, but I really didn't know. And I still don't know that. But what I do know is I need to protect, and then protect the next turn. So, also I should mention right now that turn I went for Perish Song, I probably could have just doubled Chandelure and knocked it out, and then I think I would have been okay. I would have been able to deal with the Conkeldurr. It would have been tough because of Mach Punch, but I think the Perish Song in the long run was better, because I might have had to play some Protect Bind games potentially, and Conkeldurr can be a pretty bulky Pokemon. So, anyways, here we go. It comes down to double protect. However, there is one more thing to consider, and that's that Chandelure gets access to Trick Room. And if it has Trick Room and my opponent realizes that he could go for Trick Room, and he would be able to win the game that way if I just go for the double protects, because the way the speeds are, his Pokemon would faint last, or the last Pokemon would be his to faint, so he would win the game. So I was trying to make a decision like, crap, do I read into this, or do I just go for the double protect? And I decided that I think it's better to go for the protects, because I just don't know what my opponent has, so it's better to just play to what I think are my best chances. And lo and behold, I get the double protect on Politoed. Whew! Okay, now I need him to not go for Trick Room. And sure enough, we're going to see the Mach Punch, but we are going to see the Heat Wave. Okay, great. So I win the game on that. I'm glad I didn't read into that, because I would have lost if I had. But if I did think he was going to go for Trick Room and I just double attacked the Chandelure, I would have won the game there if he was going for Trick Room. So, whew, that was a close one. But again, it was like being down late or being down early, but seeing my win condition and seeing, you could see how it was changing as the turns progressed. Like as things missed, or I need my opponent to make certain plays, or as they made certain plays, yeah, it changed. And looking back, you can kind of see where it goes right and wrong as well, where I could have done differently. Maybe there's a better win con, or yeah, all that stuff. So I hope, yeah, that's a good example of seeing how thinking turns ahead helps. Thinking about health, like I needed my Scavalier to keep health, that's why I protected that turn. I went for Perish. Yeah, and then again, like thinking about items and moves on my opponent's Pokemon, so, or just hoping for a mistake. So yeah, so let's get to the next example. To give some real backup, this is a game where I led Kingdra to Rillaboom against Terrakion Whimsicott. What I did is I switched Rillaboom into Politoed to get the speed, and I just played like straightforward and went for the Terrakion. They were smart and they switched Terrakion out into something else, and they switched into Porygon, which I did over half, and that leads us to the second turn where Whimsicott goes for Tailwind, which I definitely was thinking he might do, but wasn't sure. So what I did here is I just go ahead and take out the Porygon, because I'm like, dude, this Porygon's sitting at half health in KO range. I should just take it out. It's a pain to get rid of. It's bulky. Let's dump it. However, that was a mistake. I made a really bad play right there. Yeah, I knocked out Porygon, went up 4-3, and I knocked out a Pokemon that can be really hard to KO. But I made a huge mistake because I just gave my opponent a position that made their win condition very clear and very simple. You bring in Terrakion with the free switch. You have Tailwind up, so you're faster than my Kingdra, and you now can proceed to beat up your Dynamax Terrakion and knock out a Pokemon, and there's nothing I can do about it. So I was in trouble. And you know, looking back, what I should have done, if I was going to commit to knocking out Porygon, I needed to take Politoed out and bring in Rillaboom so I could fake out Whimsicott the next turn so they couldn't get this combo off. Or I just ignore the Porygon and get rid of Whimsicott, because as long as both Whimsicott and Terrakion are around and have a chance to be on the field together with the speed advantage, like that's a problem, and I can't allow that. And I needed to get rid of Whimsicott to remove that relationship to Terrakion, because Terrakion's is easier to deal with when it's not next to Whimsicott with the speed advantage. So I'm flustered. I switch out Kingdra thinking I want to conserve it, but I didn't want to max guard it, even though I probably should have max guarded and done something with Politoed, but really there wasn't a whole lot I could do. I didn't know the item. I thought maybe I could like max guard and gone for a Scald Burn, but you'll see that didn't matter because this Terrakion actually has a weakness policy, which I didn't know until I scalded it, because I am going for the Scald Burn, but rather than weaken it, I just make it stronger. And then I was thinking, okay, let's conserve Kingdra. Maybe it can come in handy later. I'll bring in Porygon. So if he goes for the Politoed, maybe I can get Trick Room off later. If he takes out the Porygon, it just goes down. I save Kingdra for maybe later I can get Rain Up and proceed to win with that. And then I was like, okay, I'll just go for a Scald Burn to see if I can reduce this damage output. But again, it has weakness policy. You're going to see that. It just takes things from bad to worse. And after this turn, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what to do here. This thing is at +5 attack. It's outspeeding my whole team. Nothing can survive a hit. I'm done for. I'm so done for. And like look how much is just like changed from each individual turn, and just me not fully thinking ahead. So I'm trying to decide, like, Kingdra coming in doesn't do anything. My best bet is gonna be Rillaboom, and the reason for that is because it has Grassy Glide, which is a priority. It's super effective against the Terrakion. I didn't think it could knock out, but like the only way I could win this game is I have to get rid of this Tracheon right now before it can attack again. And Grassy Glide was the best chance I had. But then at the last second I remembered, oh, I should just press Helping Hand, Grassy Glide. Maybe that KOs. I didn't expect it to because it's Dynamax. But Tracheon's pretty frail. It's super effective. Who knows? So I don't know what my win, if that's my win con, but if I have a win con, that's it. That's my only win con if I have one. So I just do it. Helping Hand, Grassy Glide. Let's go. Can we do it? Can we come close? And we come close, but it looks like it hung on with 1 or 2 HP. And after that, that was the end of the clip, but after that, it just ran through my team. Or I probably forfeited the next turn. It was over. I was done. So, guys, that's a really good example of thinking about what happens when you pick up a KO on a Pokemon. It might turn out in your favor, or it might not. Like, you have to really think about that, because sorry, I was changing my music because that one's really loud. But yeah, you have to like really think about that, because if you allow your Pokemon to get a position with a really clear win con that you can't do much about, you're in deep trouble. So another thing I probably could have done there was just let Kingdra go down, then bring in Rillaboom and go for the play, because now at least I have Porygon in the back. But yeah, either way, like really think about what your opponent, like that next turn, that's what that really emphasizes. So anyways, guys, I hope this was been helpful. It's one of those concepts that you hear it mentioned, like what's my win condition, but I don't think it's really explained a lot to newer players. Like it's a deeper part of the game that is really important, that you have to understand if you want to, like, if you really want to get more consistent. You know, it's important to understand, like, team, like, you know, what's a good team, what's a good Pokemon, what's a good strategy, but you got to know that deeper stuff if you're going to use those strategies well. So yeah, be sure to think about those plays when you're playing with your team. So yeah, guys, again, hope it helps. If you have any questions about any of this on the video, please leave them. I'll do my best to answer them. If you liked it, I love to see the support, so it helps me know that to keep doing this kind of stuff. And I'll keep thinking of more guides that would be helpful, of this more like deeper, below the surface level things that I think will go a long way when they're actually like formally explained to people. So yeah, big takeaway I think is, when you knock out a Pokemon, always ask yourself what comes in for free in that slot. Is that going to give me problems? How do I cover that? So there you go, guys. Have a great rest of your day. I again love the feedback I'm getting on some of these guides, and I'm glad they're helping. So take care, have a great rest of your day, and we will see you in the next video. Later.